It began, as these things often do, with a single image, a photograph, blurry, old, almost forgotten. But within hours, it was everywhere. Across social media feeds, YouTube thumbnails, and news headlines, millions of people were staring at the same question, the same mystery, the same unsettling possibility. And at the center of it all stood one of the most talked about women in modern royal history, Meghan Markle. The photo was said to be taken in 2001, long before the palace, long before the title, long before the world knew her name. And yet, what truly stunned royal watchers wasn't just the image itself. It was the reaction. Because insiders claimed the image had quietly circulated behind palace walls before it ever reached the public. And when it did, it reportedly caught the attention of someone who had remained publicly silent for years. Prince William. He hadn't spoken directly. He hadn't issued a statement. He hadn't confirmed anything. But sometimes silence speaks louder than words. And suddenly, the internet began asking questions no one had dared ask before. Questions about timelines, questions about identity, questions about truth and perception. Because the truth is, the royal family isn't just a family anymore. They are something far bigger. They are an institution. They are a symbol. They are, in many ways, the world's oldest and most powerful celebrity brand. For over a century, the public has watched their every move. Their weddings draw billions. Their funerals stop the world. Their conflicts divide nations. But why? Why do we care so much? Why does a single photograph have the power to ignite global debate overnight? The answer lies deep within human nature itself. Royalty represents something timeless, something myth-like, something that feels both real and untouchable. They live in palaces like Buckingham Palace, surrounded by tradition, guarded by protocol, and protected by centuries of carefully crafted image control. Every smile is analyzed, every gesture is decoded, every silence is questioned, and when that carefully protected image cracks, even slightly, the world notices, because people don't just watch royals. They invest in them. Emotionally, psychologically, even personally. Some see heroes, others see villains, and many see reflections of their own struggles, family conflict, loyalty, betrayal, ambition, and survival. But this obsession didn't happen overnight. It evolved, slowly at first, and then all at once. There was a time when royals existed at a distance, untouchable, unreachable, but that distance would eventually collapse, and when it did, everything changed forever. Because the moment royalty collided with modern media, privacy became impossible, and no one would feel that impact more deeply than the next generation, including Prince Harry, his brother William, and the woman whose past was now being examined under the harshest spotlight imaginable. But to understand why this photo caused such a shockwave, you have to understand how royalty itself transformed from distant rulers into global celebrities, and that transformation would begin with one woman who changed everything: Princess Diana. Before the cameras followed their every step, before their private lives became public spectacle, the royal family existed behind a veil. They were seen, but never truly known. For most of modern history, royalty operated at a careful distance from the public. Appearances were formal. Speeches were scripted. Emotions were hidden behind trained expressions. The monarchy depended on mystery. Distance created power. But the invention of television began to quietly change everything. Suddenly, the public didn't just read about royals. They saw them, moving, smiling, existing like real people. Yet, even then, something was missing. They were still symbols more than humans. Until she arrived, young, shy, uncertain, and completely unprepared for the storm she was about to enter. When Princess Diana married into the royal family, no one could have predicted what she would become. At first, she seemed to fit the traditional mold, quiet, respectful, and obedient to centuries of protocol. But the cameras saw something else. They saw vulnerability. They saw emotion. They saw authenticity. And the public responded instantly. For the first time, a royal didn't feel distant. She felt real. She laughed awkwardly. She blushed. She made mistakes. She showed pain. And people connected with her in a way they never had with royalty before. It wasn't just fascination anymore. It was emotional attachment. Photographers followed her everywhere. Every outfit she wore became global news. Every expression sparked headlines. But Diana didn't just tolerate the attention, she transformed it. She used it. She visited hospitals. She hugged patients others were afraid to touch. She stepped into dangerous places not for attention, but for impact. And the cameras followed. Not because they were told to, because they wanted to, because she made royalty human. But there was a cost. Behind the smiles and flashing cameras, pressure built silently. The attention became relentless. Every personal struggle became public discussion. Every private pain became global entertainment. And the institution wasn't prepared for it, because the monarchy had always relied on control. Control of image, control of narrative, control of truth. But Diana existed outside that control, and the public loved her for it. In many ways, she became more powerful than the institution itself. Not politically, but emotionally. When her marriage to King Charles III began to collapse, the world didn't just observe it. They chose sides. They analyzed interviews frame by frame. They searched for hidden meaning in every word. They treated the royal family not like rulers, but like characters in an ongoing global drama. And that changed the monarchy forever, because from that point forward, royalty would never again exist in silence. They had become celebrities, and unlike traditional celebrities, they couldn't walk away. They couldn't quit. They couldn't escape. Their roles were permanent, their visibility unavoidable, and the next generation would inherit not just the crown, but the pressure that came with it. Two young boys watched it all unfold. They saw the cameras, they saw the headlines, they saw the pain. Prince William and Prince Harry grew up inside that storm. They experienced firsthand what happens when private life becomes public property. They learned early that the world doesn't just watch royalty. It studies them. It questions them. It waits for cracks. And years later, when Meghan Markle entered their world, those cameras were already waiting. But this time, they weren't just watching. They were hunting for answers. And when that 2001 photograph resurfaced, it didn't exist in isolation. It existed within a system built on decades of obsession, expectation, and scrutiny. A system Diana had unknowingly helped create. And Meghan was about to experience its full force. Because behind palace walls, nothing stays buried forever. To understand why today's royal drama feels so explosive, you have to go back to the moment everything truly shifted. Because before Meghan, before Harry's exit, before viral interviews and leaked photos, there was Diana. Princess Diana didn't just marry into royalty. She reshaped it. When she entered Buckingham Palace as a 20-year-old bride, she was stepping into a system built on tradition, restraint, and emotional distance. The monarchy had survived wars, abdications, scandals, but it had always maintained one thing above all else: control. Control of image, control of narrative, control of vulnerability. Diana broke that control without even trying. The world saw her cry. The world saw her struggle. The world saw her speak openly about mental health, loneliness, and betrayal. That had never happened before. When she gave that now-famous television interview in 1995, it wasn't just shocking, it was revolutionary. She didn't speak like a royal. She spoke like a woman hurt, unheard, and determined to reclaim her story. And suddenly, the monarchy wasn't just an institution. It was a family with cracks. The public didn't turn away. They leaned in closer. Because vulnerability creates connection. And connection creates loyalty. By the time her marriage to King Charles III formally collapsed, Diana had become more than a princess. She was a global icon. But icons come with risk. The media attention intensified. Paparazzi chased her cars. Tabloids speculated daily. Every new relationship became headline news. The line between public interest and invasion disappeared. And then the unthinkable happened. Her death in 1997 didn't just shock the world. It froze it. Millions gathered outside palaces. Flowers covered gates. Tears flowed across continents. For days, it felt as if time had stopped. The monarchy faced something it hadn't faced in modern history. Public anger, public grief, public demand for emotion. The institution hesitated at first. Tradition demanded composure, but the world demanded humanity. And that moment forced a transformation. The royal family could no longer remain distant. They had to evolve. They had to show feeling. They had to understand that the age of silent authority was over. For young Prince William and Prince Harry, the loss of their mother wasn't just personal tragedy. It was a turning point in royal history. They walked behind her coffin while billions watched. They learned that pain could become public spectacle. They learned that privacy could vanish in an instant. And those lessons would shape every decision they made as adults. William would grow into the role of future king, measured, cautious, protective of the institution. Harry would struggle more openly, questioning tradition, resisting constraints, searching for something beyond the palace walls. Two brothers, same trauma, different responses. And then, years later, a new figure entered the story, an American actress, divorced, independent, comfortable with cameras. Meghan Markle was not raised inside aristocratic tradition. She understood media, she understood branding, she understood narrative power. And from the moment her relationship with Harry became public, comparisons began. Some saw echoes of Diana, the outsider, the modernizer, the woman unafraid to speak. Others saw disruption. But one thing was undeniable. The spotlight returned with full force. And unlike in the 1980s or 1990s, this was the social media era. Photos didn't take days to circulate. They spread in seconds. Speculation didn't simmer quietly. It exploded globally. Which brings us back to that resurfaced 2001 image. Because in a royal ecosystem shaped by Diana's legacy, vulnerability, and perception carry enormous weight. If the public senses inconsistency, if they suspect narrative control, if they feel misled, the reaction can be swift and brutal. And insiders claim that's exactly why this old photograph caused tension behind palace walls. Because in the modern monarchy, image isn't just important. It's survival. And when questions about truth begin to trend worldwide, even silence becomes a statement. By the time Prince Harry met Meghan Markle, the monarchy was already navigating a very different world than the one Diana had entered. Social media, 24-hour news, and viral content meant that every royal move could spark a storm overnight. And Meghan, with her Hollywood background and media-savvy personality, was about to shake the institution to its core. From the start, their relationship attracted scrutiny. Paparazzi circled relentlessly. Headlines speculated on Meghan's every decision, every word, and every outfit. Royal watchers dissected social media activity with near-military precision. And for William, who had grown up under intense public observation, there was an immediate concern about how history might repeat itself. Only this time, magnified by the speed and reach of the internet. What truly escalated the tension, insiders say, was not Meghan's presence, but the perception of control. The palace had long been accustomed to shaping the narrative. But Meghan and Harry pushed back. They sought to tell their story in their own words, and that created friction. Then came the leaks. Private conversations, confidential emails, and previously unseen photographs started surfacing online. Among them, the now infamous 2001 image of Meghan that reignited debates about her age. Some claimed it was innocuous. Others suggested it raised questions about the timeline of her public persona. And when whispers reached Prince William, the response, according to palace insiders, was sharp but measured. William reportedly felt an obligation to protect the family's legacy, to maintain transparency without inflaming public speculation further. It wasn't personal animosity, it was about control, perception, and the weight of centuries of tradition resting on his shoulders. Yet the leak added fuel to a growing fire. The The public discourse turned sensational, mixing curiosity with judgment. Every media outlet, from tabloids to global broadcasters, picked up the story. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan felt embattled. They had entered the royal sphere with expectations of support and guidance. Instead, they found themselves navigating invisible minefields, where every action could be interpreted as betrayal, rebellion, or scandal. The image from 2001, though seemingly minor, became a symbol of the scrutiny and suspicion that would haunt them relentlessly. The tension reached a climax in interviews and public statements, where subtle jabs and coded language hinted at unresolved conflicts behind closed doors. Royal aides worked tirelessly to manage optics, while social media users and journalists created their own narratives, often based on speculation rather than fact. It became clear that the monarchy was no longer just a family. It was a brand under constant attack, and its members were living paradoxically in public intimacy and private isolation. For the brothers, this was deeply personal. William had to balance his role as future king with loyalty to his family and protection of the institution. Harry had to reconcile love, independence, and personal happiness against a backdrop of historical expectation. Meghan had to navigate her identity, legacy, and new responsibilities while facing relentless global attention. And amid it all, the leaked photograph acted as a flashpoint. It wasn't just a picture. It was a reminder that in the modern royal world, no past action is ever fully hidden. Every moment is archived, analyzed, and weaponized. Every image, every detail, has the potential to ignite a storm. This is the world Meghan and Harry stepped into. A world where loyalty, privacy, and personal history are constantly tested against public perception. And it's in this environment that even the smallest detail can feel monumental, and even a single photograph can trigger a chain reaction that reverberates across the globe.